The House of Osman were not only the sultans of the Ottoman Empire, they were also caliphs of the Muslim world for the last 400 years, ever since Selim the Grim had got his hands on Cairo and defeated the Mamluks and started controlling the key cities of Jerusalem, Mecca and Medina. Therefore, that gave the House of Osman a lot of spiritual and political leadership in the Sunni Muslim world. With the Sultanate abolished, a new caliph was appointed. He was called Abdul Majid II. But really, how much power did he really have? The country was still being run according to the constitutions. Let these ladies go past. And another one. And another one. And a chap. The country was still being run according to the constitution of 1876 and 1909, which a constitutional caliph was integral to. So even though the Republic of Turkey had come into existence, it still had some Ottoman remnants, which was proving very difficult to get rid of. Initially, the National Assembly led by Mustafa Kemal was more concerned with fighting Greeks than discussing deeper constitutional issues. But this is when Mustafa Kemal would show his true colours. He wanted the land that he had just fought to defend and repel the enemy to be a secular, Western-like nation state with Turkish nationalism at its heart, which is very different to the Ottoman philosophy of din-e-devlet. And in order for him to put this into practice, he was going to need many of his high-ranking military friends. So he discussed it with the likes of Kazim Karabekir and Rauf Bey and Rafa Beli Pasha, people who were very high up in the military. And when they heard his ideas, they weren't down with this at all. They were completely against it. And that's when Mustafa Kemal realized if he was going to enact his vision, he was going to have to go a different way rather than the military way. Otherwise, it would have been blocked by these high-ranking officials. So he started his own political party, and he called it the People's Party, and he called for elections. Now, in Ottoman society, they didn't have a plethora of political parties because they just had the Sultan, the Caliph, and the people who were appointed in the parliament, but no political parties. So he just won the independence war. He was a hero of Gallipoli, and there was no other political party. So guess what happened in the election? He won a landslide victory. And as soon as he did that, he had his three high-ranking military friends, Kazim Karabekir, Rauf Bey, and Rafa Beli Pasha, put under house arrest for years and years and years. Now, he had not only did he have military power, but he also had the political power to enact his vision for a country which he would eventually go on to call the Republic of Turkey. On the 3rd of March 1924, there was a vote over constitutional reform taking place in the parliament. And as a result of this vote, it was decided that the Caliphate should be abolished. And Mustafa Kemal had actually masterminded this vote because the pro-Caliphate parliamentarians were not present in parliament that day. And as a result, Abdul Majid II and his family, and also the Sheikh al-Islam Mustafa Sabri, were exiled from the land. And there had always been a caliph for the Muslims, whether it be a caliph with real political power, like the Rashidun caliphs or the Umayyad caliphs or the early Abbasid caliphs or most of the Ottoman caliphs. But sometimes there was a caliph who was just ceremonial, like the late Abbasid caliphs in Cairo or the last 2 or 3 Ottoman caliphs. But nonetheless, this position had always been there since the year 632 AD, when it first started with the companion of the Prophet Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and it ended with Abdul Majid II. Mustafa Kemal had ended 1,300 years of Islamic rule, but that was only the first of many things he was going to banish from the Islamic way of life that the Ottomans had instituted in their land. In order for his secular, Western-orientated nation-state to come into existence, Mustafa Kemal would need a lot more than just political and constitutional reforms. He would need vast social reforms as well. Over the next 12 years, as a secular dictator, Mustafa Kemal abolished the Sharia and adopted the Swiss Civil Code. The Muslim scholars that were working in governmental positions were removed and they were relegated to the pulpits of the mosques. And all the religious schools, the Islamic universities around all the mosque complexes that were churning out religious scholars were closed. He banned the hijab for ladies and he banned the fez for men. He changed the adhan, the call to prayer, from the minarets from being recited in Arabic to Turkish. And he changed the script which the Turks would write in from an Arabic script to a Latin-based script, thereby further distancing themselves from the source books of Islam, the Quran and the Sunnah. And he also asked people, Turks who had Arabic-sounding names, to change them to Turkish-sounding names. Apart from him, of course, he kept his very Arabic-sounding name, Mustafa Kemal. All this led to a de-Islamization of a society that used to live and breathe Islam and changed it into the Republic of Turkey. The three main Ottoman institutions were the Mulkiya, or the executive, which were the House of Osman. They had been exiled. The second one was the Ilmiya, which is the people of knowledge, either scholars or viziers, and they had either been abolished or their roles had greatly been diminished. And the third institution was the Askariya, or the military institution, which was firmly in the hands of Ataturk, who was a secular Turkish nationalist. So all three of the main Ottoman institutions had been completely overturned, and this unique Islamic civilization had been replaced by yet another nation state, and secularism had replaced Islam, and Ataturk had masterminded it all. I first learned about the Ottoman Empire about 21 years ago, and when I did, I was very, very proud of their achievements, but at the same time I was very upset that they no longer existed. But now I realize that empires are like humans. They are born, they grow, they reach their peak, then they decline, and then they die. No empire has come and stayed forever, just like no human was born and never died. What surprises me now is how long the Ottoman Empire lasted, 600 years. They started in the medieval period in 1299 and they ended in the modern period in 1924. They started off as one tribe and they ended up being a multi-ethnic empire. They started in the countryside in Anatolia and they ended up ruling 3 continents. They started when warfare was with the sword and the camel and ended when warfare was with the plane. They started when communication was with the pen and paper and ended when it was with the telephone. The Ottomans had endured a lot of change. They were constantly adapting, but unfortunately destiny took over and they perished. Islam has always had someone to represent it on the international scene, and the Ottoman Empire was the last empire that did this, and ever since their demise there has been a huge vacuum in the Muslim world. The only question is now, who is going to be the next Islamic polity that rises up and represents and presents and carries Islam in the world just like the Ottomans did so well for nearly 600 years. Thanks for watching my series on the Ottomans. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and press the subscribe button and hit the bell button, because I have another Islamic history series already in the planning and coming up real soon. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.